The story I'm going to tell today is a tale of survival, kindness, and also a most eerie encounter that the storyteller said he still can't fully comprehend until today. According to his sharing, he had been tricked into joining a scam operation to the north 10 years ago. Luckily, he managed to escape in the end and began his journey back to the south. And during his penniless and miserable way back home, he was lucky enough to meet a kind-hearted fellow from his hometown who owned a motel and willing to help him. The fellow said that his current motel was fully booked, so he told the man to stay at his old ones, which about 5 or 6 kilometers away. The man was already exhausted from his journey of escaping, so he gratefully accepted the offer. Then they set off and drove to a desert street. The motel was at the end of the street, stood in front of a vast and empty ground, surrounded by abandoned shops with broken signs and shattered windows. This scene at that time sent chills down the man's spine, and the motel owner sensed his unease and explained it to him that this area used to be a bustling commercial street, and most businesses, like the shops they saw, had already relocated due to the government redeveloping plans. But his motel was one of a few that hadn't moved yet. Now he rented out as a storage space. This 3-story motel actually looked dark and eerie because from where the man was standing, he saw nothing but darkness through the window. But he didn't have any other choices at that time, so the owner unlocked the front gate and let the man inside. When he entered the motel, he saw that every room was filled with stored goods, except for 2 rooms on the 3rd floor. And the owner opened the door to one of the empty rooms, and it was surprisingly clean and tidy. It was like a normal hotel room. He then explained it to the man that it was because sometimes the renters will stay overnight when they stored their goods at late night. After giving the man some instructions in the room and ensuring that he had everything he needed, the owner left and said that he will come back next morning and bring him to the train station. Because the man was very exhausted, so he took a quick shower, then laying on the bed and quickly fell asleep. Somehow during the night, the man was suddenly waken up by a strange noise next room. He described that it sounded like there were 2 people talking with each other, and also accompanied by a faint melody. And he said the noise is repeating. It was like 2 people talking with each other first, and then ended with that strange melody. So just he was about to fully awake by the noise, then that voice suddenly stopped. He thought that maybe he was too tired and he was dreaming, so he attempted to go back to sleep. But then he heard a tapping sound on the window. Now he had fully awake because he realized that he lived on the 3rd floor. So how could someone be tapping on the window? He was fearful, and somehow it made him even more exhausted. So he chose to ignore that noise and go back to sleep. Later, a loud clatter from the air conditioner waked him up again. Then he saw the AC unit had turned on by itself, with its green light eerily shining in the dark room. He stared at it for a while and trying to understand what was happening. Then he felt a strange and sharp pain in his back. So he quickly got up, turned off the AC with the remote, and decided to unplug it for safety. But now after all these eerie things, he was not that sleepy anymore. So he turned on the TV, trying to distract himself from all these eerie atmosphere. But this is still not over, because when he was watching TV, he noticed that the strange talking voices had returned from the next room, but even louder this time. And due to the curiousness, he pressed his ear to the wall. Then he heard a man and a woman speaking, followed by that strange music, and the sequence repeated endlessly. It was like a man and a woman speaking, and then end with that eerie music, like keep repeating and repeating. If it was a normal person lived next door, why would they play the same clip from the TV over and over again? So he convinced that it was someone playing a prank, and he decided to go confront them. He grabbed a small knife from his pocket for protection, then walked into the dark hallway and knocked on the door of the next room, shouting a greeting saying that, "Hey, are you guys the renters? I have no harms, just I was told by the owner to live next door tonight." Then he heard the voices stopped immediately. The man thought that these people must understood his words, so he went back to his room and locked the door. No longer after, just as he thought everything was fine and planning to go back to sleep, he suddenly heard metal clicking sound from the hallway. Then he saw that his door lock was actually slowly turning by an eerie force. He was beyond terrified and stared at the lock. His heart was pounding clearly in the darkness. Just at this moment, a woman's voice echoed through the door, and then the lock stopped moving. Under this extreme terrifying condition, he gathered all his courage, then yanked open the door. But he saw nothing but darkness. He was puzzled and scared, so he locked the door again and sat back down, keeping his eye on the lock. Couldn't even dare to blink. Suddenly, the TV in the next room blurred to life again. Only at this time, he heard a woman's voice clearly saying that, "He is so pitiful. Just let him go." His skin crawled at that moment. He was furious by the overwhelming fears, so he shouted back, "Who are you? What do you want from me?" But the response was chilling and clear, saying the same thing. "He is so pitiful. Just let him go." Only at this time, a cold and deep male voice replied in the air that, "He can't leave. He must stay with us." And then the woman kept replying the same thing. Suddenly, he noticed that the dust on his hand from the door lock of the next room, and it shocked him because he realized that if the lock was dusty, it meant no one had entered that room for a long time. So who kept talking and playing that strange music next door? It was now past 3 a.m., and he said eventually he was passed out in that huge and overwhelming fears. So he didn't know what's going on later, and by the time he woke up, it was already the next morning. When he saw the motel owner return, he immediately asked him if anyone had stayed in the room next door. But the owner is very confused and assured him that no one had come to store their goods recently, and also including last night. And eventually, he was lucky to make his way back home. But this experience left a lasting scar. For over a year, he couldn't walk alone during the night. And even now, almost a decade, he still doesn't know what he had encountered that night during his escaping journey. Actually, in the old days, like even now, there are many these kind of like scamming community and company exist in the society. Therefore, I think no matter when we are and where we are, we should always keep an eye on the people around us and making sure that we are safe. Okay, so this is the end of today's story. Once again, thank you for watching. I hope you liked my video and hope to see you next time. Bye bye.